Let's see. It says I'm on. Hold on a second, guys. It says I'm on, but I'm not on. So I'm going to double check this real quick and see what's happening. My control panel is not working. Interesting. But yet I'm jumping on. So, okay, whatever. Sarasota, Michigan. Good, you're here. But my... Interesting. Hold on. I'm confused by something right now because my stream says I'm not on here, but I'm on there. So you're definitely popping on. So that's a good thing. Northern Minnesota. Awesome. Now it's working. Okay, good. Indiana, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Louisiana. Awesome. Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Yeah, I'm on all of them. It took a little bit to catch up on my side. So we are good now. So tremendous. Awesome. Wow. Hi there. Pennsylvania, Columbus, Ohio, Tennessee, Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I used to live in Boston. Cape Cod, I've been once. It's beautiful. Chicago, Texas, Philadelphia. Good. California, wonderful. Awesome. Well, let me get started because I have a few things to go with you tonight, and I put out a post earlier. We're going to talk about the pineal gland, and we're going to spend the majority of the night talking about the pineal gland. So that's where we're going to be. But before that, I will tell you that it was actually a spiritually challenging day for me right from the beginning. And I'll tell you the reason why. And then actually it kind of ended tonight. Other than this, it'll end positive here tonight with you folks. But it ended also positive before I came on tonight about an hour or so ago, and I saw a friend do a video. And first of all, welcome, Dr. Jason Dean, Revolution Network, your source for health, freedom, and knowledge. And why was it challenging? So I just finished up with my flight, came back, and I am finding out that there's two things happening. And I will tell you, I was pretty beat up before I came on tonight. I'm getting better as it goes. Now I'm doing this, and this always gives me energy. But I was pretty spiritually beat up because for two reasons. One, and I actually think my wife spoke about this earlier, was where do we draw the line? And I will tell you, I had a conversation with several people today regarding where we draw the line. So I talked to my buddy, Dr. Mike Reed, earlier, and I said we both agreed that you're going to see most likely a partial or a major flare-up of this thing in the fall before the election. It's not because it's going to be natural. It's going to be induced. And that is why you have states like California, Illinois, Minnesota, Washington, Oregon, New York, places like that. Why they're trying to extend this as long as they possibly can. Their lockdowns, deep state Democrat governors running the show. They're trying to extend this as far as they can towards the fall to get to this thing because this is a geopolitical game or war. They're playing war with our rights. And so as we go into the end of May right now, we're close to the beginning of June and the hot summer. Keep in mind, we're only a couple months away from August, September, October, and then November, right? So there is no more. So we have two paths here. There is either no more normal at all to the point where from now on, we become this insane country where every time somebody gets even a little sick or the flu pops back up or whatever else pops back up, we're going to go into mask mode, we're going to go into temperature mode, we're going to go into whatever mode. I'm hoping that's not where we stay, but that's very possible. And because at this point, I think most of us are sick of it, the ones who are watching here tonight and all the friends that jump on every day. But the majority of Americans are still completely asleep. And every time the media pushes fear, they're going to jump back on board and they're going to give away freedoms, give away rights. They're going to pop their mask on and they're going to put their gloves on because that's how they react. I'm hoping that's what we don't become. The other side is this thing goes down the way it's supposed to and we build our republic back the way it's supposed to be, and we stop and we forget about all this garbage, these masks, these fake pandemics, etc. Right? That's what I hope. But until that, where do you draw the line? So for example, when I have people telling me that if you go to a certain place and you can't go in because we have to operate at 6 feet social distancing, or you have to have your hands washed, or you have to take a temperature check at the front door. And then I had people going, well, and I know my wife talked about this a little bit. Well, it's okay because I run a normal temperature. That's not the point. The point is that is an invasion of your privacy. That is an invasion of your human rights to take a temperature for no reason whatsoever. That is not how the world works. All right? Completely wrong. So, yeah, sure. If you give me a temperature every day, I'm going to register about 98.5, whatever, 98.6. I run a little lower. I'm going to register fine. And sure, I could forfeit every single day to give me my temperature, knowing full well I'm not going to read the high temperature. However, that is not the point. The point is you don't have a right to take my temperature because this thing is bullshit, right? And I'm not going to let you do it. I don't care if I'm going to a store. I don't care if I'm going to a church. I don't care where I'm going. I don't care if I'm jumping on a plane. You do not have a right to take my temperature. I do not give you permission to do that because, first of all, it's a medical procedure technically, right? If you want to get in the semantics about it, right, that it is wrong. It is absolutely 100% wrong. And I won't give in to that because you're abiding by non-scientific BS. 6 feet social distancing isn't even science. It's made up. So I'm not going to abide by something that's completely made up. There's nothing behind it. There's no proof. I'm not going to abide by a mask or gloves because there's nothing behind it. I am a physician. I deal with people every single day that have colds, flus, bacterial infections, etc. Yet it's interesting because I've been doing this for myself 7+ years, but I've been in a practice format for 15 years. And guess what? Haven't gotten sick from other patients. So wait. So I don't get sick, but then I have to abide by your rules because you're science, you're the CDC, you're the FDA. No, not going to happen. My line has already been drawn. I will not step over that line. All right. But where is your line? And my concern is that you're letting him do it. That you're going to allow them to take your temperature, that you're going to allow them to dictate what you do. And that's wrong. It's wrong. And some people will say, well, you know what? That's everyone's choice. I get it, but it's still wrong because it's not correct science. It's fraudulent. Therefore, you doing that is stepping over my line because now you're allowing a country to step over my line. So you allowing that to happen is actually violating not only your principles and ethics, but it's violating mine as well because now you're making my life harder to live. So it's wrong. It's wrong on every level, right? And now, other than that, the other thing I was just beat up about today was, it's interesting as I scroll through social media in the evening or in the afternoon, I'm looking at different things. This is what I see. I see a lot of people with a lot of big mouths who are complaining about the money supply and the stimulus package, and they're complaining about not being let out of their house and lockdown, and how unconstitutional it is, and how it's against all our rights, and how it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. But yet, you know what? And some of these are friends. Some of these are colleagues. Some of these people I don't know. The whole point is, it takes one thing to talk about it and rant about it on social media. You know what it takes? It takes another thing to get up and do something about it. So I'm not going to stand on a pedestal and say, yay me, I went to California or anything like that. My point is not that. My point is, why don't you, instead of going out there and marketing yourself, and why don't you go, instead of going out there and ranting on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter on how brutal this is and look what they're doing to us, why don't you go do something about it? For example, like, I haven't seen any protests in New York. I haven't seen any protests in, I've seen one in Michigan. I have not seen any in Oregon that I know of. Now, if there are some and I missed it, so be it. I missed it, but I'm not seeing national attention on it. I'm not even seeing social media attention on it. I've seen Michigan in the very beginning, and then I saw California. So wait, let me get this straight. California, who we call the most communist state in the country and in the union, had more protests so far than New York State. And yet I hear New York State complaining about having so many rules against them and so many things that are violating their privacy, violating their rights, violating their constitutional rights. Yet you still haven't gotten up and done something about it, right? I know Illinois had them, all right? So where is everybody else, okay? And if you are out there, again, I'm not seeing all of it, okay, because obviously national news is not going to cover everything. But if you have put this together and you have made these things happen, you need to spread it as far as possible on the social media channels. And quite honestly, I haven't seen anything, right? So you need to spread that far and wide. But at the end of the day, I'm seeing a lot of talk and not as much action. And I told them in California, I said it in California, there was, 10,000 plus there. If you think this is going to do it and you think it stops here, you're completely wrong. So whatever states you're in, California, Oregon, Washington State, New York, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Illinois, all these states that are being pushed back, you better be prepared to be out there in front of your state capitol on the streets pretty much every single weekend until the election. Because if you think they're just going to give it back to you, they're not. They will not give it back to you until you absolutely make so much of a protest that they have to answer back. They have to do something about it. You must. If you have tracing, if you have all this different stuff, turn your phone off then. Turn your phone off, right? We have to be a nation that actually stands up, because I will tell you, I am very concerned. I'm very concerned that we're going to let them walk all over us, and we're going to let them tear up a constitution. And I understand. I'm not saying I'm not behind the president and I don't think stuff's going on, and I'm still following everything. I'm just, every once in a while, the pressure cooker boils up and then it boils over. So yes, I'm positive and I'm watching stuff and I still believe something's going to happen. But if you think that President Trump and the Q thing and the military is all you need, that's not true. It requires you standing up and doing something about it. And that's what I was beat up about today, because I don't want to see this nation go down because people decided, well, if I just rant on social media, that'll make it all go away. That's not what makes it go away. What makes it go away is action. Getting up, saying something about it publicly, doing something about it publicly. Okay? That's my rant for the show tonight. Now, the pineal gland. All right. This is such a deep subject, probably just like the rest of my subjects that I go over, is that I will not be able to tackle this all in one night. It will be many nights. I just felt like I finally needed to come out and do something about this, because A lot of people I'm reading on Twitter talking about calcified pineal gland, talking about, that's the big one. The calcified pineal gland is probably one of the big ones, okay? So the pineal gland. Does everyone know what the pineal gland is? Let me see if I can't pull up a little picture here for you, okay? I'm going to bring this up on the screen so you can see it. It's a very pixelated graphic, so I apologize, but let me bring it up for you, and we'll show you what it looks like. Okay, very pixelated graphic. Obviously, now, I showed you this first on purpose because what you're going to see is on the right is the pineal gland, all right? On the left is the eye of Ra, or the all-seeing eye. All right? Keep in mind, the all-seeing eye is the eye of knowledge. Now, we'll debate what knowledge means to them. All right? But the left is the eye of Ra. This is the middle of your brain. All right? So you have the pineal gland, you have the pituitary gland. This is the cerebellum up top. You have the limbic system. You have the brainstem right here. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. All right, the pineal gland. So I just wanted to give you reference. This over here is the Egyptian eye of Ra. All right, good. Now that we have that, I'm going to jump back over to me so I can explain some things to you. Okay, so that's what that is. I'll hold that in case I need to reference it later. But the pineal gland is the most sensitive of the human nervous system. It is also the third eye, which is the soul. Now, there's debate whether the soul is there or the soul is in some part of the other part of the body. But it is your all-seeing eye. It is the third eye. It's the window to the soul, all right? Now, let's dive into a little bit about this. Now, you've heard of calcification. I constantly hear people talk about how do I uncalcify my pineal gland, all right? Okay, I'm going to get into most of that later because there's several different ways, and I'll be honest with you, I have one solution for you tonight that most of you are not ready or don't know about, and it's very important, and we're going to talk about a certain way of eating that not everyone will agree with, but it's very, very important, okay? Now, Rudolf Steiner, if you go look that name up, he said, if you destroy the pineal gland, you're taking the soul away from the human. All right, Rudolf Steiner. Now, let's dive into Edgar Cayce. So Edgar Cayce is a favorite of mine. Raise your hand or give a shout out on the comments if you've heard of Edgar Cayce, who I think Edgar Cayce is one of probably my favorite people in the history of people, because if you go read about him, he was an interesting guy, very eccentric. He was fantastic. Now, the interesting thing about Edgar Cayce was, and I actually have a supplement that we'll talk about later, that is a supplement designed off of Edgar Cayce's work, and it's one of my favorite things in the world. I love it, okay? So Edgar Cayce. Now, let me tell you about Edgar Cayce first. And by the way, if we talk about pineal gland, there's no way for me not to talk about the spiritual world, so I'm sure I'll step on some toes tonight. It is what it is, but we have to go down this road because it does not matter what faith you come from. It doesn't matter what religion you believe in or come from, what part of the world you're in. The third eye is the third eye. It's the soul. It's you. Okay. It's the soul of the body, right? So we all are spiritually alive. Now, not all of us are spiritually awake. Okay. That's one of the reasons why we have such problems on this planet, is because this deep state cabal has helped shut down our third eye. And if our third eye was wide open, guess what? We would be awake. And trust me, this planet, our societies right now would look very different than they are right now. They have done a very good job of pushing the spirit of man and the spirit of the planet way down. Okay? Very, very way down. All right? Good. Now, Edgar Cayce. Here you go. I'm going to break some of your paradigms and some of what you think is true, which is not true. Ready? Remember what I said. Sometimes you have to unlearn to learn. All right. Edgar Cayce was a devout Christian man. Literally read his Bible at least once every single year. However, Edgar Cayce also knew that there are missing books of the Bible. All right. I think there's at least 10 that people talk about. I have not listed them all out, so don't ask me that. I have to go research it. However, Edgar Cayce also believed completely in reincarnation. Now, that's going to scare a lot of people right now, or put them in fear, because we have been taught growing up that there's no such thing as reincarnation, that we die, we go to heaven. And if that's your paradigm, that's fine. I'm not beating that up. I'm just giving you information on Edgar Cayce. You can have whatever viewpoint or belief system you absolutely want. That's not a problem. However, Edgar Cayce was a devout Christian and fully believed in new and reincarnation, as he talks about. And you can go look he has a website out there. He's passed away, obviously. Now, that's a whole other thing. He passed away. David Wilcock believes he is the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce. Now, don't ask my opinion or judgment. I have no idea. I follow David Wilcock. I love some of his stuff. Some of his stuff I don't care for. I don't know how much of his stuff is true, how much stuff is not true. I don't know. I don't have problems with David Wilcock. I don't fully know. But David Wilcock believes that he is the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce was freaking awesome, right? He is a fun guy to study. I'm not going to go through his whole history tonight, but you got to go look up Edgar Cayce. He's amazing. Now, Edgar Cayce did what was called remote viewing. He actually, I believe, did it for Russia, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't looked that up in a long time. But he was actually, he showed that he could basically remote view somewhere in Russia, and I think he actually deciphered, or something about a telegraph. Again, I have not looked this up. This is going off of memory because I looked at it several years ago. Was he remote viewed something from Russia and then told someone here in the US, I believe, about it, and it was dead on. And they're like, okay, how did you do that? Now, what is remote viewing? I'll give you what my belief system on remote viewing is. You have to go look it up and decide what you think. But he was spiritually able to leave his body. Remember, as beings, as souls, we are just energy. This goes into the whole frequency stuff. So you'll have to go look that up on your own, okay? He was able to leave his body as energy. Now, he didn't mean he died. His body was still there. Go somewhere else, look at what was happening, and then come back and be able to tell you exactly what he saw. Now, you would say that's impossible. However, he did it over and over and over and over again, right? And it was proven. This has been proven after that as well. That once Edgar Cayce had it down, there's been other people since that, government people behind the scenes that did the same thing. There's shamans, there's people in very spiritual parts of the world, other countries do the same thing all the time, right? You can go look it up for yourself. That's been proven. Many people do that. I think probably the Dalai Lama has done that. It goes back to, now I'm going to go into areas I don't fully know, so don't fact check me on this necessarily, but I think it's Tai Chi, which is spiritual energy, meaning there's people that can hover above the ground, and people go, "This is impossible. You're crazy." That's it. It happens, right? I have a friend who's watched it happen. I have not seen it myself. I have a friend who would not lie about that. Or you see some of these very, very almost ascended learners who can balance on top of like a wine glass because the energy of their body is so light that they're basically almost floating. Okay. Again, I'm glad everyone loves this. I'm not going to go super deep. I'm going to have to go deeper later on because I'm only going so long tonight. But obviously people love this stuff, and I do as well. I think it's fascinating. Now, how does this go with the pineal gland? Okay, so Edgar Cayce was remote viewing, all right, for sure. Now, how did he do that? His third eye was clearly wide awake. All right. Now, there's a term. They call it, some people call it leaving the body. Others call it like exteriorizing out from yourself, meaning the energy you are not this, okay? We can all agree on that. You are not your physical body. And everyone's going right now, he is not talking about patriotism. He's not talking about it. Yes, I am. Because at the end of the day, you're a patriot. You're an American patriot, or you're a Australian patriot, or you're a German patriot, or you're a Chinese patriot, or you're African patriot. Doesn't matter. When you learn as much as you possibly can and make yourself as spiritually awake as you can. One of the reasons all of us are in the situation we are here in today with this country as well as every other country out there is because they, the cabal, have suppressed our spiritual history. They have darkened our worlds. They have made us believe we're just simply here on planet Earth to be born, get a job, or go to school, get a job, be sick. Oh, that's right. By the way, you're supposed to get to the age of about 65, and you're supposed to get sick, and then you're supposed to be in a wheelchair probably, or in a hospital bed for a while, and then you're supposed to get some really horrible chronic disease, and then you're supposed to die between 80 and 100, and if you're really lucky, you might get to like 99, 105, somewhere around that age, okay? That's what you've been told. However, that's complete garbage, because if we go back and look at biblical times, why were people living to 300, 500, 900 years old, okay? Why is that? Why did that happen? And what were they doing that was different than us, all right? Well, there's a lot of things. We'll go into that. But back to Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce also talked about the first and second cervical ganglion, all right? Now, you're going to have to Google that. I'm not going to go into all of that tonight. I'm just going to give you the very bare knuckles version, okay? The first and second, okay, you have your optic and your olfactory nerves, okay? Optic, olfactory, all right? So you can see, you can smell. Now, obviously, you have many cranial nerves, okay? This is the chiropractic thing and neurology thing. You have many cranial nerves. However, number one, your eyes. You take things in as vision. That goes in through the middle of your brain. It goes through your pineal gland, and then it goes back to the back of your brain, which is your sensory, okay? You have to pick up on the light, all right? And then if you decide to do something about it, motor is up here. Motor means go. Now how does that pertain to all this stuff, okay? It pertains to your autonomic nervous system, which is sympathetic and parasympathetic, all right? And trust me, this all connects. Your parasympathetic nervous system doesn't mean sympathy, okay? It means, parasympathetic means rest and digest, meaning your body is supposed to heal, especially when you go to bed at night. Sympathetic nervous system does not mean you're sympathetic or your sympathy. It means fight or flight. Okay, those two, parasympathetic and sympathetic, make up the autonomic nervous system, which is controlling homeostasis, meaning you're supposed to be healthy. Your body is supposed to adapt to the surroundings around you, and you should adapt to healthy. Homeostasis is health, okay? Essentially, it's not really the meaning of it, but for this example, it is, okay? So, that's how your body's supposed to work. Now, keep in mind, if you remember the documentary Out of Shadows, they talked about Project Mockingbird. Remember? The television programming, the channels, right? And they even talked about this in the actual documentary. They broke down the words, okay? Programming, meaning you go home and watch a television show and it programs you. Now, how does this deal with the pineal? On actually several fronts, okay? It deals with the pineal several ways. One, you're taking in the story. You're taking in the images. That programs your pineal gland. So when you see really nasty stuff on television, whether it's like murder or shooting people or like really gratuitous sex and just stuff that is not actually good for us to take in, right? That brings darkness. That messes with your pineal gland. Now, on top of that, you're saying, or the other thing you're seeing is the blue light. Now, for example, I'm honestly, now you saw me with orange glasses before, and I don't have those on right now because they're really strong, and I think I'm gonna have to actually change them. Because when I look at them, it makes everything so orange that it's rough for me. That's why I haven't had them back on. I wear them every once in a while, but not as much when I'm doing this because it throws me off. But right now, I'm surrounded by a ton of blue light. Now I have a software on here. Let me see what the software is called because I actually forgot what it was called. I had it for several years. Let me see if I can spot it really quickly here because it has been a while. And I might have to find it later because it's not popping up right away. And again, many years ago, so I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Anyway, just so you know, it's a software. It's actually called Iris. Okay, IRIS. If I can find it, maybe I'll drop a link. What it does is it actually makes my screens, it tints them kind of an orange. So it's kind of doing the same thing that the glasses would have done. And so right now I'm not getting blasted with blue light. It's actually toning it down for me, which looks a little weird because the colors are off. But either way, blue light also messes with our pineal gland through our eyes, the main sense that we deal with. All right. So literally when you watch a movie, when you watch all this, why do you think the movies are such garbage today? They're programming you in that pineal gland. It actually darkens your pineal gland. It makes it worse. Does it calcify it? I don't know. We're going to go into the calcification here in just a little bit. Okay, what are the biggest pieces? What calcifies the pineal gland? Two things, and the combination is absolutely horrible. Aluminum and glyphosate. They actually combine to destroy the pineal gland. So, is this starting to add up to you? It's a formula. Now, if you look at our food system and you look at everything we have going on in pharmaceuticals, this destroys your pineal gland. So I'm going to take you over to show you something really quick, which is very fascinating because it regards medical. All right. So let me take you over here. Whoops. There we go. There we go. Okay. So you see this. Boom. There we go. All right. Now, do you see that? That is a pine cone, and then that is the medical symbol. Keep in mind, there's two serpents. So now are you starting to get an idea of, now this, so I need to bring you back over here for a second to me. I'm going to take you back to that picture in a second, but if you hadn't seen this before, this should be mind-blowing to many of you who've never seen this. So you have two serpents, right? And then you have a pine cone sitting on top. So does that maybe make you think that the two serpents or serpents have done a very good job at occluding our pineal gland, and the medical system might be doing an amazing job at destroying, calcifying our pineal glands, right? Now, keep in mind, a lot of people have said that we are the most advanced civilization we've ever seen from a technology standpoint. Completely, probably not fully true. If you go back the cave wall, like if you ever watched the show Ancient Aliens, I don't love the show, one, because it's just too dramatic for me. Like, I'm one of those people that they could give me all the information of one episode in 5 minutes, I'd be fine. I just need the facts. I don't need all the drama and the music to go along with it. So if you go back on the cave walls in Egypt, Babylon, all this different stuff, they already knew about UFOs. They already knew about ETs. They already knew about the pineal gland back then. They were already spiritually more in tune than we are. So for all this technology we have, we're actually so not awakened, right? They have been slowly over time pushing us down, all right? And that's been the entirety of it. Okay, I'm going to go back over. Okay, now, have you also seen this other places? So I'm going to actually scroll this down. Here's another one. Now, if you guys didn't know, the top is the Anunnaki. All right. Oh, I'm going deep tonight. Is everyone okay with me going deep? All right. Going deep. And all you see, okay, the brain, pineal gland, pituitary hypothalamus. Here is the pine cone. All right. Pine cone. Oh, there's the Pope with the pine cone. Why do you think the pine cone might? There's the Vatican. I've been to the Vatican years and years ago. We went, I believe, for our honeymoon. It was part of our honeymoon. It wasn't the whole thing. We went to the Vatican. I saw the pine cones at the Vatican. At the time, I didn't know what they were. And now I know what they were. Guess what? The Vatican has shut you off. They have completely occluded you from understanding your full spiritual potential in life. The Vatican is one of the most suppressive organizations on the face of the planet. I don't really care if anybody cares about that or is upset about me. Not the Catholic people. The Vatican, right? The Pope says you need to go through him to find God. That's a load of crap. You are spiritual. You can be as awake as you want to. You do not need a third party to go between you and the Creator. You and Jesus. You and whatever other prophet or savior you want. Doesn't matter what religion you come from. I don't care. That's not my place to judge. Either way, you can have a direct relationship yourself through that. You do not need a guy in a cephalic helmet or whatever he calls it with the pine cone on his staff telling you exactly what you need to do. It's a load of junk. I'm going to bring you back over here. I might have to go a little long tonight because I'm not even halfway through my stuff. Okay. Now, look, this is on the ceiling of, now I forgot the name of it, Cathedral. Yeah, forgot the name of it off the top of my head. Anyway, okay, so you have up here, which is, by the way, this is one of my favorite pictures of all time, is God reaching out to Adam, apparently. Okay, man. But then if you look down, look at that. It just happens to be the shape of the human brain. And you just happen to have the middle right here, which is the Eye of Ra, which is where your pineal gland is, reaching out to man. Sistine Chapel, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay? Your pituitary, your vertebral artery, okay? Optic chiasm. We have the cerebellum back here. If you get dizzy, your cerebellum is probably off. Spinal cord, okay? The pons, this is right here in your brainstem area. So is it kind of fascinating that the Sistine Chapel, and by the way, when I was here at the Sistine Chapel, I didn't recognize this, okay? This was a long time ago. I wasn't awake then, right? But look, this just happens to be an exact duplicate of exactly what we just talked about, all right? Reaching out and touching man, creation. This comes from the pineal gland, all right? So this is what they are holding from you. This is what they are holding from you the whole time. I can never find the book when I need it, but the Occult History, which Jim Marrs wrote that I've showed you before, and I'm just looking back here to see if I can find it. I'm not seeing it. Anyway, the Occult History by Jim Marrs talks about this. It talks about what happens when we find an archaeological site somewhere around planet Earth, and he talks about the Vatican, the FBI, the CIA, the Mossad, MI6, all these organizations, right? They go and they take up all of the stuff from the archaeological site, like Atlantis. I will almost guarantee you, Atlantis information is in the Vatican basement. Almost guarantee you. They take all of the stuff from these archaeological digs, they put it in the Vatican basement, or probably other places as well, because I don't know how big the Vatican basement is. And then the rest of it that they find is allowed to be viewed by the public. Then they put that on Discovery and History Channel. So you get just enough information to keep you at bay, but they don't show you where you came from. They don't show you your natural origins, all right? This might very well be part of the gigantic Great Awakening at the end of this whole thing. Could you imagine, as a civilization, as a society, if we are given the truth on how this really, really works, okay? Now, I have read things regarding from Q, from Twitter, from the different Anons, that they're actually going to talk about anti-aging. And remember they talked about we're going to find the cures. The cures. Now, I'm not saying that personally. I'm not going to get in trouble over this. Guess what gland just happens to excrete chemicals that are for anti-aging and anti-cancer? Oh, that's right. The pineal gland. The pineal gland, okay, so which is mind-blowing in itself, right? Okay, so why did all these biblical characters that we hear about and read about, how did they live to like 300, 500, 900 years old? Oh, maybe they were spiritual awake, and maybe their pineal gland was actually excreting the proper chemicals, the proper hormones, melatonin, to bring them anti-cancer, anti-disease processes, anti-aging, right? This is from our actual origins. This is why they don't want us to know that. Why do you think in plain sight they have the pine cone, and in plain sight they have the all-seeing eye? What if all of these people who claim to have seen the light, what if they actually have the secret, which is anti-aging? Look at all these Hollywood celebrities tend to look really young for a really long time. How in the hell is Kissinger still kicking? How was Rockefeller kicking for so long? Now, obviously, they didn't make it past 100 necessarily, but how did they go so long? How do these Hollywood celebrities go so long other than plastic surgery? What if they're actually tapping into something that they weren't letting you know about? Now, remember we go back to, and Morley talks about this, and this is one of my favorite things he talks about. What if, right? And remember, adrenochrome not only comes from adrenal hormone, but the pineal gland runs it all. Your pineal gland, your pituitary, and your hypothalamus are the ones that produce and excrete hormones that also get your thyroid and your adrenals also. It's a negative feedback loop, right? Where do you think adrenochrome comes from? This is all involved. This is what they're doing, all right? Now, copper is electricity. Magnesium is movement. And guess what? Calcium is concrete. Calcium calcifies or makes concrete in the joints and the body. So, for example, when we have somebody who comes into an office, whether it's in my office on X-ray or it's in a medical office or an ER on X-ray, if they have a health problem or they have a spinal problem and you put it up on X-ray, guess what shows up on the X-ray? Solid white. Well, guess what solid white means? Solid white either means that you have an artifact, meaning like metal or something else is showing up on the screen. So, for example, a lot of women who have their chests X-rayed, you'll see like little clips from like their bra strap or their bra can show up because there's it's called an artifact, okay? But at the same time, if you see a problem in the body or a disease process, you see also white, which is actually calcification, all right? I truly believe, and this is also in the brain too, when they do brain scans, guess what Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, guess what all of these things show in the brain? Calcification of the brain. They call them lesions. No, it's calcification, right? I am a firm believer in the most all disease processes, whether parasitic, whether cancer, whether bacterial problems that show up on the screen are simply the body. Now, the body is not putting calcification to disease it. The body is actually trying to protect you. When you have a calcification process in the body is trying to protect you from disease and damage. All right. So if you're getting damaged all day long by, let's see, programming, by vaccines, by medication, by fluoride, by glyphosate, by aluminum, okay, guess what your body's trying to do? It's trying to protect it. Guess what it throws there? It throws calcium there. It throws calcium there to try to protect you, but in reality, it's giving you disease. All right? So your brain right here, right? Your brain is an antenna. if you take anything away from tonight, now I'm all fired up. If you take anything away from tonight, I want you to know that your brain is an antenna. That means your spinal cord, your nerves are all part of the antenna. All right? Frequencies. Okay, this is how we talk to God, folks. This is prayer. You are sending out a frequency, energy from your brain, your antenna, out to the ether, into the universe. And then when you hear that voice of God, when you hear that consciousness, that comes back in and connects to your antenna and gives you the ideas, the answers that you get. All right? We're just an antenna. So, taking that deeper, have you noticed when you're dealing with someone with a neurological or cognitive issue, or an older person, if you have a family member, a grandparent, a parent who's dealing with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, all these different neurological diseases, right? You always say, they forgot who I was. No, they didn't. They didn't. Do you know what really happened? Is their body became calcified in the brain, which is their antenna. Their antenna, which calcifies, can no longer connect to the ether, the thoughts, the mind, right? They can no longer connect, and now they don't know who you are, because guess what? That information is not stored in the brain, right? It's not. Now, the brain can store things like emotion and different stuff like that. We're learning about the limbic system. However, this connects to the mind out there, to consciousness. And this is why they can't remember you. This is why they can't remember their past. This is why they have a long, maybe short-term memory problem, right? Because their brain has been calcified by the medications, by the vaccinations, by all the garbage that's been put in their system by the medical community. And it's literally a sheet of calcification, a sheet of chemicals, a sheet of metals over their brain that has stopped allowing their antenna to connect to the ether. That's what is happening. All right. So glyphosate, killing the brain. Aluminum, killing the brain. You think, okay, well, where did we get all this stuff? Vaccinations. So not only does vaccinations kill the nervous system and cause potentially, most likely, autism, when they inject that in, you have mercury, you have aluminum, you have polysorbate 80, you have formaldehyde, you have all of these different things. They pass through the blood-brain barrier and they go right to the brain. So when we see these autistic kids and they're acting irrational and they're yelling and they're screaming and they don't make sense, what happened? Well, aluminum and mercury, as well as many other heavy metals and many other heavy chemicals, have all gone through the brain barrier and it's stuck to the top of their brain, which is their antenna. And we expect an autistic kid to act normal when we have coded, the medical system has coded their brain with metals and chemicals, and now their antenna can no longer connect properly to the ether. It's just like pouring water on an electrical circuit breaker. Now, the same thing. What if you took mercury or liquid aluminum and poured it all over a circuit breaker? You're literally it's going to go haywire. It will short out. They can no longer connect to ether or the consciousness. That's what's out there. That's what you can't see. And some of them can see it. They know it's out there. That's what our cosmos are for. That's what all of this is. All right. So not only on top of that, okay, I'm still going because I even have more to go to, but I have to get through this tonight, because if I don't get through this tonight, then the rest of it's going to be even harder, and I don't want this stuff goes with what it goes with, okay? So now keep in mind, okay, this is where it goes even deeper, all right? So you have fluoride. Okay, who was the first person to put fluoride in the water system? Yeah, that was Nazi Germany. That was Hitler. They put fluoride in the water system because fluoride dumbs down the brain. Dentists are still putting fluoride in your teeth because it hardens the enamel on your teeth. Sure it does, but it actually makes the rest of it weak, and it calcifies the pineal gland. It literally destroys the pineal gland and your brain for that matter, okay? So now What else does the pineal gland do? The pineal gland is part of your circadian rhythm, sleep-wake cycle. Now, you've heard of melatonin. Melatonin is actually a hormone. Can I tell you, there's only 2 people that I've ever given melatonin to, and trust me, I had the supplement. I mistakenly took it once myself. I thought it was, we have another product called throat spray tone, which is for like your voice if you talk a lot or speak a lot. And so one night, very late, I went in and I saw the spray bottle because they're the same color. And I grabbed the spray bottle and I just sprayed it. I thought it was throat spray tone. And I looked down, I took like 4 sprays and it was actually melatonin. And I went, oh, damn. Like, I wasn't worried about it, but I was like, oh no. And literally within about 15 minutes, I got so groggy and so sleepy, like I just went right to sleep. Okay, now, melatonin is your sleep hormone. Your melatonin kicks on at night. Now, let me make this disclaimer first. I just said that I've only given it to 2 people. One, the person was not sleeping at all, and I needed to get the person to sleep because it was ruining their life, and I did it. The other one is an older gentleman who's in his, I think, late 80s or early 90s now. He's still alive. I gave it to him because he was very poorly sleeping. Very nice gentleman, and I didn't want him tortured, so I gave him melatonin. However, I do not like, nor do I ever try to give melatonin to people because you're not supposed to use melatonin regularly. If you continue to use melatonin too much, your body will stop making it. Your pineal gland will stop making it. It's not for that. I know a lot of people out there take melatonin every single night. Wrong. Your pineal gland is not working. That's not what it's for. Again, I gave it to an elderly person because honestly, I'm very empathetic towards him. He wasn't sleeping. He's elderly. He needs some rest. And so I gave it to him and it helps him. And he takes it most every night. But it's because he was having troubles and I don't want him to suffer. Okay. However, adults, no. You have to figure out why your pineal gland's not working. You have to figure out why it's not happening, okay? That's why. So, not only that, but when light is on, the pineal gland will not produce melatonin. The other thing that throws the pineal gland off and melatonin off are EMFs, okay? And basically radio waves. All right, that was the start of our problems with our pineal gland. All right, it confuses itself. The pineal gland needs darkness to make melatonin, which then brings us to light in the morning. So interesting, right? From dark to light. We need melatonin at night for our pineal gland. Our pineal gland makes melatonin in the evening, and then when the sun comes up, dark to light from the pineal gland. Interesting. Makes sense? I wonder if when Q talks about where we go one, where we go all, and he talks about from dark to light, maybe he was talking about the pineal gland and the production of melatonin at night when it's dark, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in the morning, when it becomes light, we wake up to light. Now keep in mind, we were never supposed to wake to an alarm clock. We were supposed to wake to the sun coming up. Interesting how that works, right? The sun. Wasn't it Ra and the Egyptians who worshipped the S-U-N? And it's very interesting also because I have a little story for you, and I have completely destroyed my time tonight because I got on a rant and there was a lot of information, and I'm just going to keep going as long as you guys are cool, okay? However, I remember several years ago, my wife and I going back to my hometown and on Sunday morning getting up and going to church, and I have an amazing church at home. It's called Countryside Christian Chapel, and in a very small town. Wonderful small community church. I have a blast. I love going every time I go back. And it's an old school church, right? So when you're there, they actually have hymnals, all right? And they read from hymnals. It's not like a big praise church. They have that now too. But it's not like a big praise church, right? It's more of a hymnal church, which is cool. That's what I grew up with. These like the old rugged cross and all these really cool songs. And so I opened up the hymnal to one of the songs, and I don't recall the hymn, but I remember opening it up, and in it were 2 words. And my wife pointed it out. As we were singing along. There was two words. One was S-O-N, and then again in another verse, there was S-U-N. So, this is very fascinating because if melatonin is produced at dark, and then if we're not supposed to wake up to an alarm clock, we're supposed to wake up to daylight, melatonin turns off. When the daylight comes, you go from dark to light. And again, in Egypt, they were worshiping the S-U-N, the sun. So it just gives you a little bit of a different viewpoint of how this works. Now, again, how do we shut this down? Okay, pineal gland regulates hormone melatonin. It also regulates the onset of puberty for both male and female. Okay, now keep in mind, have you noticed that as we get worse and worse as a society with bad food, horrible television, horrible, like all this environmental stuff, our kids for some reason have inadvertently hit puberty way before they're supposed to. All right? Way before it's supposed to. So, that's the fascinating part, right? Is it actually messes with puberty and it makes them get sex hormones too early. Now, isn't it also fascinating that we have a cabal and deep state right now that are making sexualization younger and younger and younger because we're not supposed to be sexualized that young. And now they want us to take into consideration all sexes, whether it's male, female, bi, trans, and they're coming up with 100 different genders. Don't think this is not all designed to shut all of our pineal glands down so we can't be awake to what's really coming. All right? Yeah, and there's steroids or antibiotics, right? So the pineal gland also protects against free radical damage. Free radicals, okay? It's rust in the body. This is how it all actually works. And so the pineal gland is so important. Now, how do we get these glyphosates and these aluminums? Okay, so we're vaccinating the crap out of our kids. Now, if we now know the pineal gland and the brain don't like heavy metals like aluminum, but yet we're vaccinating our kids and that aluminum goes right to the brain and creates an aluminum foil. Think of literally aluminum foil. Do you think it's good to use aluminum foil now? So we're putting aluminum foil all over food, and then we put it in microwaves, whether or not you use aluminum foil. Don't do that. That'll set on fire. However, medication has aluminum in it, which goes into your liver as well as goes into your kidneys. So you're literally becoming a heavy metal system. By the way, when you have all these metals sitting on top of your brain, guess what else they can mess with you on? They can now use cell phone signals and cell phone towers to create emotions up here that are not normal. So therefore, you become literally a living antenna for them because they can control you through the metals in your brain from the cell phone towers. This is going to sound crazy to some of you, but this is exactly what they're doing. Now, when they go on to these hardcore frequencies, they're going to literally mess with us. They can control every single thing you do and you won't actually know it. That's also involved with MK Ultra. So this is the way they're going, okay? The internet's the same thing, the Wi-Fi, all of this, the EMFs, everything. They're using all of this to shut down this pineal gland, okay? This is now, there's some people that have said, and keep in mind, before I dive into that, what do you think chemtrails are for? Right? Chemtrails. They're dropping aluminum onto you, which then sucks into your body. What do you think deodorant's for? So deodorant, when you put it under your arms, why do you think breast cancer has skyrocketed? Right? Breast cancer did not skyrocket because the BRCA5 gene or whatever it is, right? It didn't. It skyrocketed because we're putting tons of aluminum into the air, into the body, through deodorants, and then it clogged for women. So I'll use this arm. For women, you put the deodorant in, the heavy metals, the aluminum, suck in, and then you get down here. This is all your lymph system, your lymph glands, okay? The mammary glands are in here. The lymph system dumps in to the mammary glands. Now you have heavy metals, women. You have heavy metals dumping in to your lymph glands, and now you're looking at breast cancer. And you wonder why breast cancer is skyrocketing. Add on top of that, women, you're wearing underwire bras. So you have, we'll try this again. You have deodorant going in. You have the heavy metals coming down the breast tissue. And then underneath, you have underwire bras. Metal, by the way, metal underwire bras that are pushing down. And this can go for men too, but women, obviously, it's the big one. Underwire bras pushing down on your lymph system right here, compressing. The heavy metal is literally soaking and sitting right in the breast tissue. And then you're getting breast cancers. And then you have the Susan G. Komen Foundation, which is a piece of trash organization, which is taking all your funding and all your money, and they're putting it towards executive private jet trips and selling you garbage when they fully know that heavy metals are right here and the underwire bra is not allowing the lymph to push out, and it's all sitting there creating disease processes. And when they go on film, it looks like calcium because your body was trying to protect you. Instead, you have a tumor that's surrounded by calcium, right? With the cancer in it, which is actually the heavy metal. And then they do a biopsy, they put a needle in there, they pop the balloon, and then you have metastasis. That's how it works. And that's what they're doing to our bodies. And they're using the pineal gland to shut us all down so we can't think anymore. We can't be spiritually awake anymore. That's why you have genetically modified organisms. That's why you have glyphosate. That's why you have steroids and antibiotics in your food. That's why you have vaccines. That's why you have chemtrails. That's why you now have the EMFs, the Wi-Fi, etc. Now, there's ways we can use certain things to our benefit, but that's why we have all this, because ultimately this is to shut down our third eye, our spiritual center, right? The pineal gland. So you can be kept asleep to what your real source is, what God really is, and your intimate relationship with your creator. And if you could go all the way back to that spot, it would blow your mind, because we have been held from it for so long. It's almost unbelievable. All right. So you got to kick the fluoride, which is in the drinking water. You got to kick the toothpaste, which has fluoride in it. You got to kick the non-organic food because it has genetically modified organisms in it. It has glyphosate in it. It has everything. This is all the stuff that's helping destroy our pineal gland. I hope that makes sense. I am so far over time, it doesn't matter, and I still have to show you something else. So now I'm going to lightly touch on this, but I'll go into it later because I do want to end at a reasonable time tonight, because I know you guys, a lot of times I'm told you guys don't go to sleep afterwards because you're all fired up, and I have the same problem. So I also have to go to bed at some time. There is a study out that says that it's very possible that hydroxychloroquine could be also the answer to basically decalcifying the pineal gland, okay? I don't know for sure about that. Not positive. I got to study it more. I'm not for sure on that. I'm not convinced of it, okay? But I'll do some more information and study for you so I can find out, okay? These are the last two things that I want to talk about, and I'm going to talk about them very briefly, and I'll have to go into them more later on. But I do want to show them to you because it's very fascinating. The first one's a small little video. The last one, I'm just going to talk to you about some quick foods, but I'm going to talk to you about a vitamin that you don't know about. And then we're going to end for tonight, and I'm going to be way over time, but it is what it is because this is a fired up subject, and I believe this is getting us closer and closer to what the actual Great Awakening is. So let's jump over to this video, and this is from Red Pill Beta, who I think is phenomenal. Here we go. All right. Let's put this up. Now you know why you see the all-seeing eye all the time. That's the Vatican. Okay, I don't think that was the one I actually originally looked for, but I'll show the other one again later. But let me see if this is it real quick.
So it's kind of like a representation
Here we go.
of the pineal gland because every member of the hive has one. And so what happens is, yeah, it's your third eye. That's what they're talking about. That's why the Hindus and the different religions, they have the eye up here on the forehead. And they talk about opening your inner eye and all that stuff. It's just letting Satan in the door and saying, I'm ready. Run me in fully and completely, yeah. And they think it's like being one with your creator.
I wanted to have the audio on this.
It is. And then when you get saved, if you get saved by Jesus Christ, you become an enemy of the world. The enemy, the world ends up freaking hating your guts.
Okay, that's not the one I wanted. That's the same video, just with his talking about it. But that gave you an idea. There's another video I'll show you at another time too, because he goes deeper into the actual. He actually draws out what I wanted you to see, but we'll go into that later because I didn't find it there. It wasn't the one I thought it was, and that I don't want his narration on that because that's not the point. The point was later on, I'll show you exactly how it works from ancient Babylon to right now, which is very fascinating. So I'm going to go briefly into what you do to help decalcify your pineal gland, but I'm going to have to go into that another time as well because there's so much information and I don't want to go on forever tonight, and I was all fired up, so you're not going to sleep as it is. So here we go. All right. There's many things that will help you decalcify, okay? Some are more proven than others, and I'm not going to be the one that says this, I guarantee this works, okay? However, green vegetables will help decalcify, especially juicing green vegetables, okay? Very, very important, all right? I'm actually, after I read some of this week, I'm like, okay, I used to juice all the time. I need to get back to some juicing because I've fallen off that train a little bit, and I will tell you that it helped a lot. I really, really enjoy that. I do like juicing a lot, but I only juice green vegetables. I don't juice a bunch of fruit that is counteractive what you're trying to do. Plus, it's a quick spike of blood sugar, which is not helpful for everybody because, yes, even though it's fructose, it's still not wonderful for you. By the way, also, most of our fruit has been completely genetically modified, and it's way more sugar than it originally was when fruit was obviously from the source. So it's very different. But green vegetables you can get away with. They don't do necessarily the same things to those, and make sure it's non-GMO. It has to be organic. Green juices will help clean the system, clean the lymph system, but also can help decalcify the pineal gland. Now, there's other ones as well I'll go into later, but I want to hit on this one. It's called vitamin K2. So, guess where I'm going back to? I'm going back to this genius, which was Weston A. Price. Okay. Now, he talks about how you reverse calcification of the pineal gland, which is from fluoridation as well as other things. And he talks about vitamin K2. He actually talked about activator X. That's what he said it was at the time. All right. Now, we get vitamin K2 from animal products. Now, I know already, especially people in quote unquote some of the new age movements, I know you're going to say, I'm vegan, I'm vegetarian, I won't do animal products. I completely get it. I understand. However, I still believe, based on my research, that we should be eating some form of animal product, especially organ meats if possible. I told you in the past from U.S. Wellness Meats that I think we get a ground beef now that actually has, I think, kidney and liver, maybe heart, that's already ground up in it. And it's become my favorite meat. I love it. And I feel so much more nourished afterwards because of those extra glandulars in there. But vitamin K2, what happens is the animals convert K2 from the grass they eat. All right. It also can come from some dairy and things like that. These are the K2. Okay. By the way, K2 has been removed from the diet. Completely removed from the diet. You can get K2 from grass-fed products. I'm going to actually list these to you, okay? These things can actually help decalcify a pineal gland. Grass-fed butter. Goose liver, which I'd never heard of before. I mean, I know what goose liver is, but I never thought of eating it. Certain fermented vegetables. Now, I don't love this one, but some places you can get it, which is fermented soybeans. Now, do not get soy from the U.S. Most of all of it is GMO, but you can get some from like the Asian countries. They obviously have a better fermented soybean. If you know how to get access to it, great. If you don't, bypass that one. Raw, unpasteurized fermented vegetables such as sauerkraut. Okay. And then some grass-fed meats. All right. The lack of vitamin K2 in our bodies is the reason why so many of us have calcified pineal glands, and we're getting calcified because of obviously all the things we talked about tonight, plus the completely Americanized diet. Okay, so it's very important how this works. Also, you don't need to consume a ton of calcium. You don't have to. Calcium is not necessarily what your body wants. Your body wants copper and magnesium. Okay, copper, magnesium alone will help bone growth. All right. Now, I want to read this to you because this is very fascinating. Activator X, which at the time was considered vitamin K, Activator X was the key to the diet that allowed strong teeth resistance to dental caries or cavities and strong bones, like resistance to rickets and general health, like a proper skeletal formation of the embryo fetus in the lumen. So vitamin K or Activator X is super important for our bones. Which one does that mean? It's vital for our calcium metabolism, our osteoblastic and osteoclastic activity in the body, in the bloodstream, and the skeletal system. Okay? So very, very important. So I've given you some there. I told you green vegetables, good herbs like your parsleys, your cilantros, all of that stuff is really good for healing and decalcifying the pineal gland. And what I wanted to tell you is my story. When I actually went more carnivore over the last probably year, I became much more physically and spiritually awake. As in, when I did that, I felt better. I was more like, not that I wasn't with it, but I was very much more presently here. And that was actually before I dove into this new stuff. And now I can sit down and stuff just kind of starts flowing in like really fast. I did not have that when I was younger. Did not have that at all. That's something new to me. So I've actually, after reading this, I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep on going with the carnivore, add in some of the organ meats. I already eat some good green vegetables. I already use butter. I use coconut oil. I use olive oils, things like that. Now what I'm probably going to be adding, and I might go even hardcore on this because I tend to go hardcore on some dietary stuff, is I want to add in the green juicing again, which I did fall off of. Haven't done that. I'm going to start putting all these together and actually see how my body works. But I'm going to have some people on here obviously say, meat's bad for you, it's mucus forming, etc. Some of that is not correct data. And obviously organ meats are very different. But I will tell you, Most people who were doing that and felt terrible, they were still also eating processed foods. If you go fully carnivore with grass-fed and wild game, I will tell you, it's one of the most amazing things, and you feel absolutely fantastic when you're on it. So I'm probably going to be going more heavy heart carnivore again, some green vegetables and fats, and then I'll probably add in some green juicing, or probably a lot of green juicing. Also cleans out the liver, which is really nice, because I'm one of those people that becomes obsessed. And if I feel good doing this and I add in this stuff, I have a feeling that it'll start flowing even more. And it's all about making this pineal gland like click, click, click. And then also, even though I'm doing the exact opposite of it tonight, you should always shut down your electronics before as you go through the night too, because we don't want to be taking this in spiritual center. So I hope that helps tonight. Got a little fired up in there because it's a lot of fun. I think this stuff is very fascinating, and the more I dive into it, it's more interesting. And the deeper I go, and the more it makes sense. I think the Sistine Chapel picture was absolutely amazing, showing how that actually completely resembles our spiritual center, our brain, and our brain is our antenna to the ether. So whether you're meditating, whether you're praying, whether you're doing whatever you're doing for your spiritual guidance, you are sending out frequencies and signals to the cosmos, to the ether, to the creator. You are then getting answers back. That is your antenna to your creator. So it's very, very important to keep this clean, keep this thing working really well. We got to get rid of all these toxins and make ourselves healthy again. So I'm not going to take any questions tonight, not because I don't love you guys, but I went way over tonight because I just had a ton of information. I'm going to dive deeper. I will do my best to check some out later. And if you have any questions, if you have health questions, obviously to become a patient or for me to help you get healthy at drjasondean.com. If you actually have any other questions, get a hold of me the best you can. I will do my best to answer as much as you can, and we'll go from there, okay? Guys, I appreciate it. I hope this provided some value to you, and I hope you liked it. If you want more of this, let me know. It's really fun studying it because not only am I helping you guys, it helps me as well. So it's fantastic. And then we'll probably dive a little deeper into this stuff with Morley in the next week or so, because I'm sure he can bring even more to this. And let's go and let's heal the world, okay? Dr. Jason Dean, Revolution Network, signing off. Have an amazing Tuesday evening. Take care. Be well, guys. Bye.